officially made it to the midpoint of the book of Acts. Woohoo! And here, right at the center, Luke tells us about a pivotal moment, not just in the early church, but in church history. This is a watershed moment here at the Jerusalem Council. Now, if you've gone through our reading for today, you'll see that basically the Jerusalem Council, these group of early church leaders, decide officially, they put a stake in the ground that according to the gospel, the good news of Jesus, everybody, Jew or Gentile, is saved by grace alone, through faith alone, and you don't need to have a certain ethnic identity. You don't need to do anything except have faith and receive that gift of grace. This might seem like a foregone conclusion to us. We grew up reading the New Testament, most of us, if you grew up in the church. And I think it's easy for us to forget. It's easy for me to forget that they don't read those texts explaining these ideas about what Jesus' death and resurrection means for us. They're actually hashing those ideas out right here. I mean, some of these men, Peter, James, John, Paul, these are the men who then go on to take these ideas that they are processing and metabolizing, and they put pen to paper and they write the New Testament text that we read. But this was a radical moment. This was a radical decision. Here's why. You might feel like we have been talking about the inclusion of the Gentiles into the family of God for a long time. I don't know, maybe you got the sense that, haven't we already decided this? Didn't we already talk about this? But there are layers to this issue, right? What it means for Gentiles to be a part of the family of God. There are layers to what that means for the church. With Peter's vision, we saw that God declares to the family of God, it is time to go to the Gentiles. Don't call unclean what I have called clean. Go to them. And they do. They do it. Paul and Barnabas just got back from their first missionary journey, where they actually fulfilled that third part of Jesus' commission to take the gospel and go be his witnesses to all nations. They're actually going out to other nations and proclaiming the good news of Jesus to Jews and Gentiles alike. But this is still a very Jewish church. It's a very Jewish church. And something that I think that we don't realize as modern Americans is that before this church family ever existed, there was a debate in Judaism about what it meant for Gentiles to be welcomed in to the family of God, or whether they even could be. There were rabbis who were more strict and taught that for Gentiles to even be justified, to be in right standing before God, they had to convert to Judaism. So they would have to be circumcised and follow the dietary laws and follow the Mosaic law. And there were more open-minded camps, rabbis who taught that, you know what, you just need to believe in the God of Israel, in Yahweh, and you are justified. But that doesn't mean you're a part of his family, because you're not Jewish. There was this idea that a Gentile couldn't have full membership. They couldn't be full heirs to the promises of God like the Jewish people could. And so then we come to this very Jewish church of new believers and followers of Jesus who are trying to hash out the implications of the death and resurrection of Jesus. And they come to this radical conclusion that none of the Jewish rabbis had even gone far enough. That not only did you not have to convert to Judaism to be justified before God, all you had to do was believe, but you were also a part of God's family. You became a son and a daughter and a full heir of God's promises, just like the Jewish people were. This is a big, big turning point. And you can see why some of them are uncomfortable with it. Their norm is changing. For millennia, they have lived with this certain assumption and set of rules around what it means to be in covenantal relationship with God. And for them, that meant adopting these aspects of the Mosaic law that made them Jewish. It gave them their Jewish identity. Their norm is changing. Their idea of relationship with God is being flipped on its head, and I think we can have empathy for that. You know, we as a whole, as a species, aren't always so great with change, with our norms changing. It kind of makes us squirm. It's hard. I think we can empathize with them. But they're realizing at this moment that God's grace is so strong. God's love and his power and the work of Jesus on the cross is so big that human qualifications and ethnic identity don't count. They don't count. All that counts is grace and faith. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. The stakes are high and the decision is radical. They decide that not only are you forgiven and your debts are paid, but also you become a full heir of the promises of God. For them, this means that these pagans, these rough around the edges, former idolaters, are now fully members of the family of God in the same exact way that they are. For you and I, this means that we, beautiful creations of God with mess and rough edges and sin, are also put in right standing with God and welcomed into his family. It means that no work that you can do, no sin that you can commit, no ethnic identity can get you any closer or further to being welcomed in. I hope we don't lose our sense of how radical this is. I hope we don't lose our sense of how rich the gospel is. God's grace is so strong, that the door is flung wide open, and all you and I need to do is walk in. No matter who we are or what we've done, all we need to do is walk in and be welcomed in. You are a son or a daughter. You are a full heir of the promises of God. You're in the family now. The door is wide open to all of us. Take care, friends.